One day I went to the jeweler, and it was empty. My daughter-in-law had pawned my jewelry for her plastic surgery. When I confronted her, she smiled. "I didn't think you needed them." I looked at her and answered calmly, "I don't need jewelry or parasites like you." She turned pale in a second, just like that, as if 40 years of marriage, of love, of memories, could disappear in the blink of an eye. "My name is Eleanor. I am 68 years old. And the day I opened that mahogany jewelry box that my husband Arthur gave me on our 10th anniversary, I felt the floor open up beneath my feet. I had gone to get it because it was my granddaughter Sophia's birthday. I wanted to give her the emerald earrings Arthur gave me the day her father, my son Daniel, was born. Those earrings weren't just metal and stones. They were Arthur's gaze telling me, "We did it, love." They were the sleepless nights, the diapers, our son's first words. They were life turned into a jewel. But when I lifted the lid of that jewelry box, all I found was dust and silence. My heart stopped. I opened every compartment with trembling hands. Nothing. I checked the bottom drawer, where I kept my mother's pearl necklace, empty. The gold bracelet Arthur put on my wrist on our wedding day. Gone, the rings, the chains, everything. It had all vanished. $30,000 in jewelry. But it wasn't about the money. It was about Arthur, about my mother, about every happy moment those pieces represented. It was about my history, my life, turned into air. I sat on the bed, the empty jewelry box in my lap, and I couldn't cry. The shock was too great. I just kept thinking, who would do this to me? I wasn't exactly alone. Daniel, my only son, had moved in with his wife Chloe 2 years ago. "To take care of you, Mom," he told me, "so you're not alone." How ironic that phrase sounds now. Chloe, 32 years old, perfect smile, always impeccable nails, designer clothes. Everything about her screamed ambition, but I wanted to believe she loved my son, that she respected me, that we were family. I stood up slowly and went downstairs. I heard voices in the living room. Chloe was laughing. That kind of laugh, high-pitched, artificial, that made even the plants nervous. I walked into the living room with the jewelry box in my hands. She was sitting on the sofa, looking at something on her phone. When she saw me, she didn't even look up. "Chloe," I said, with a calmness I didn't feel, "I need to talk to you." She sighed as if I were an annoying fly. "Now what, Eleanor?" She never called me Mom. Never, always Eleanor. As if we were colleagues. As if I weren't the mother of the man she slept with every night. "My jewelry," I said, showing her the empty box. "Do you know where it is?" There was a silence. Brief. Too brief. She looked up and met my eyes directly, without blinking, without shame. "Oh yeah," she said. "I pawned them." 3 words, like someone saying, "I went to the grocery store," as if she had just confessed to drinking a glass of water. "What?" I could barely form the word. Chloe fluffed her hair, freshly dyed an almost white blonde. Her nose, more upturned than before. Her lips, swollen and shiny. "I needed money for my plastic surgery," she said with complete casualness. "The nose job cost me $10,000. The lips, another $2,000. I had to look good, don't you think? I didn't think you needed them at your age." The world stopped. "I didn't think you needed them at your age." As if after 60, memories stopped mattering. As if the love of my dead husband was a burden. As if I were an old piece of furniture that was no longer useful. I looked at her. I really looked at her. I saw the coldness in her eyes, the arrogance in her smile. And something inside me, something that had been dormant since Arthur's death, woke up. "I don't need jewelry," I said in a voice I didn't recognize as my own, firm, icy, or parasites like you. Chloe turned pale, just for a second. Then that pallor transformed into something worse. Rage. She jumped to her feet. "How dare you?" she screamed. "You know what? I'm going to tell Daniel that you're mistreating me, that you're insulting me, that you're jealous because I'm young and you're nothing anymore." I didn't respond. I just stared at her. She grabbed her purse and slammed the front door as she left. The sound echoed off the walls like a gunshot. I was left alone in that living room, with the empty jewelry box, with a broken heart, with the certainty that a war had just begun, one I didn't ask for, but one I had no intention of losing. Because if Arthur taught me anything in 40 years of marriage, it was this: dignity is non-negotiable. And I had just gotten mine back. But what I didn't know that day was that the jewelry was just the beginning. There was something much worse waiting in the shadows. If this story touched your heart, don't go. Subscribe to the channel to keep following me in this story. Because, believe me, you will never see what's coming next. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen, with a cup of chamomile tea that grew cold between my hands without me taking a single sip. The house was silent, but my head was a whirlwind. I kept seeing Chloe's face. That smile, that casualness in admitting what she had done, as if stealing someone's memories was the most normal thing in the world. I heard the front door open around 11 o'clock at night. Heavy footsteps. It was Daniel. My son walked into the kitchen and found me there, still awake. He was 35 years old, but at that moment, he looked like a lost child. Although, of course, he was no longer the child I knew. "Mom, what did you do?" he said, without even saying hello. "I'm sorry. Chloe is in the bedroom crying. She says you insulted her, that you humiliated her." He ran a hand through his hair, visibly annoyed. "Why did you say those things to her?" I stood up slowly. I felt like every bone in my body weighed twice as much. "Daniel," she pawned my jewelry. "Your father's jewelry, the pieces he gave me over 40 years of marriage. She sold them for plastic surgery." My son looked at me as if I were speaking another language. "And what's wrong with her wanting to look good?" he said, crossing his arms. "It's her body, her decision." "With my jewelry, Daniel? With the earrings your father gave me the day you were born? Mom, you're old. You don't need that stuff. Chloe is young. She has to take care of her image. She's an influencer. Her appearance is her work tool." Every word was a stab. Are you defending her?" "I'm being realistic," he said, with that condescending tone that made me feel small. "Besides, she says you got confused about where you put them, that you probably put them somewhere else and forgot." "Daniel," she admitted it. She told me to my face. "Well, now she says it was a misunderstanding, that you misinterpreted her because you're, getting older. Sometimes people your age get confused." I was left breathless. My own son. The person I raised alone for years while his father worked overseas. The boy I cooked his favorite meal for every Sunday. The young man whose college tuition I paid for by selling my piano. That same son was now telling me I was senile. "I am not confused," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "and I'm not going to let you make me feel crazy." Daniel sighed, as if I were a burden. "Look, Mom, I don't want to fight. Just try to get along with Chloe, okay? She's my wife. I love her. And if I have to choose." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. He turned his back and went upstairs. I was left alone in that kitchen, with the cold tea and an even colder heart. The following days were a silent hell. Chloe ignored me completely. She would walk past me as if I were a ghost. But when Daniel was present, she changed. She became sweet, attentive, helpful. "Eleanor, dear, would you like me to make you some tea?" she'd say in a syrupy voice. "Eleanor, are you feeling okay?" "You look tired," she would add, as Daniel looked at her with adoration. I knew that game. I had seen it before. It was pure theater. One afternoon, while Daniel was at work, Chloe sat across from me at the dining table, unannounced, uninvited. She had that smile, the one that made me feel like a spider was crawling up my spine. "Eleanor," she said, looking at her freshly painted blood-red nails, "I want you to understand something." I didn't respond. I just watched her. "Daniel loves me. He loves me more than he ever loved you." She paused, letting those words sink in. "You've already served your purpose. You raised him, you educated him. Fine. But now he has a new family, with me. I am his mother," I said, clenching my fists under the table. "You are his past," she replied, leaning forward. "And believe me, Eleanor, if you keep causing problems, if you keep trying to turn him against me, you are going to end up completely alone." He will choose me. Always. She stood up, smoothed her tight dress, and before leaving she added, "Oh, and about the jewelry, you're not going to do anything about it. Because if you try to report me or make a scene, I'll tell Daniel you gave them to me and then changed your mind. Who do you think he's going to believe? His young, beautiful wife or his elderly mother who gets confused?" And she left. Just like that, leaving me with a poison in my chest that burned worse than any fire. That night, in the darkness of my room, I cried for the first time since Arthur's death. I wasn't crying for the jewelry. I was crying because I had just lost my son. Or at least, I thought I had. But the next day, something changed. I was making coffee in the kitchen when I heard Chloe talking on the phone in the backyard. The window was open. Her voice, normally controlled, sounded excited. "I'm telling you, Carla, the old woman fell for it completely. I've already cleared over $15,000 from her jewelry, and that's just the beginning." I moved slowly toward the window, hiding behind the curtain. Yes, I already bought the condo in the new Riverbend district. In my name, obviously. Daniel doesn't even know. He thinks the money is for remodeling the house. She laughed. That laugh that chilled my blood. "In 6 months, a year at most, I'll have her out of here. And the house will be ours. Well, mine." My breath caught. How am I going to get her out? Easy. I'm going to tell Daniel that she's mistreating me, that she's making my life impossible, that she needs to be in a nursing home. He's already convinced she's losing her mind. It's just a matter of time. My hands were shaking. No, I don't feel sorry for her. She's old. She's already lived. I'm just getting started. Why should I waste my life taking care of an old woman who isn't even my mother? She hung up the phone and walked into the house, whistling. I stayed there, paralyzed. But in the midst of that fear, that rage, that betrayal, something else woke up. A clarity, a determination. Chloe had made a mistake. She had underestimated the old woman, and I was going to show her that old roots are the strongest, because the storm was just beginning. Just like that. And what Chloe didn't know was that I knew how to play too. It was just that my rules were different. After hearing that conversation, I knew I had to act intelligently. I couldn't confront Chloe directly. I had already tried that, and Daniel defended her. I needed proof. I needed my son to see with his own eyes who the woman sleeping next to him really was. But getting that proof would be harder than I thought, because Chloe wasn't just manipulative. She was brilliant in her malice. 3 days after that phone conversation, I came home from the grocery store. I had bought the ingredients to make the pot roast that Daniel loved so much. I thought that maybe, by making his favorite food, I could get back even a little of the connection with my son. How naive I was. When I walked into the kitchen, I found Chloe sitting at the table, her eyes red and swollen, crying. Daniel was next to her, hugging her, stroking her hair. "What happened?" I asked, dropping the bags on the floor. Daniel looked at me with a coldness I had never seen in his eyes before. "What happened?" he repeated, standing up. "You're seriously asking me that after what you did?" "I didn't do anything." "Chloe told me everything, Mom. You called her a tramp. You said she only married me for my money, that you don't want her in this house." "That's a lie," I said, feeling the floor move beneath my feet. "I never." "Stop lying," Daniel shouted. He had never shouted at me like that. "She's devastated. She can't sleep. She can't eat. All because you treat her like garbage." Chloe sobbed in the background, covering her face with her hands. But between her fingers, I caught a glimpse of something, a glint in her eyes. It wasn't sadness, it was satisfaction. She was acting, and my son was swallowing every word. "Daniel, listen to me," I said, trying to stay calm. "She's lying. I didn't say any of that to her. Then why would she be crying? Why would she make something like that up? Because she wants to drive you away from me." "Because enough," he interrupted me. "It's always the same with you. You never accepted Chloe. From the day we got married, you've tried to sabotage our relationship. That's not true, isn't it?" He got closer to me, and I could see the pain in his face, pain that she had planted. "Mom, Chloe is my wife, the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. If you can't accept her, then He left the sentence hanging in the air, but I completed it in my head. Then there's no place for you here. Chloe stood up slowly, drying her fake tears. It's okay, my love, she said in a broken voice. I don't want to cause problems between you and your mom. Maybe she's right not to want me. I'm a stranger in her house. You're not a stranger, Daniel said, hugging her. This is your house, too. She looked at me over my son's shoulder, and in that moment I saw the whole truth. The small, almost imperceptible smile that formed on her lips. She had won. Again. And I just stood there, watching my son become a puppet in her hands. That night, Daniel knocked on my bedroom door. He came in without waiting for an answer and sat on the edge of my bed. I was lying down, staring at the ceiling, trying to find strength from somewhere. Mom, he said in a softer tone, we need to talk. I sat up, adjusting my robe. I'm listening. I think we should get you checked out. By a doctor. My heart stopped. I'm sorry, you've been forgetting things. The jewelry, the accusations against Chloe. He paused, looking at his hands. Dad died 3 years ago. I know it's been hard on you, and at your age, it's normal that. That what, Daniel? I interrupted. That I'm losing my mind? I'm not saying it in a bad way, Mom. I want you to be okay. To be taken care of like you deserve. I am perfectly fine. Then why are you making up stories about Chloe? Why don't you remember where you put your jewelry? I didn't forget. She pawned them. I told you, Daniel sighed, as if he were dealing with a stubborn child. Mom, Chloe showed me the receipts for her surgeries. She paid for them with her savings. With the money she earned as an influencer. She didn't need your jewelry. She's lying. Or, you're confused, he said, standing up. And that scares me, Mom. It scares me a lot. He left the room, closing the door softly. I was left alone, in the dark. And for the first time in my life, I felt something I had never felt. Total powerlessness. The following days were worse. Chloe intensified her strategy. Every time Daniel was nearby, she was the perfect daughter-in-law. She'd ask if I had taken my medication, if I had eaten well, if I needed help coming down the stairs, all with that sweet, worried voice. And every time we were alone, she would shoot me, looks full of venom. One afternoon, while Daniel was working in his home office, Chloe sat across from me in the living room. Do you know what your problem is, Eleanor? She said, filing her nails. You think you still matter. I didn't answer. Daniel doesn't need you anymore. He has a wife. We'll have kids soon. A new life. And you're just a burden from the past. This is my house, I said, my voice trembling. Your house? She laughed. Oh, Eleanor, haven't you realized half of this house is already in Daniel's name? And Daniel is mine. So, basically, this house is mine. That's not true. Want to check? Look at the papers. You signed them 2 years ago when we got married. So my son would feel secure, you said. She smiled maliciously. How generous of you. I felt the world crumble. She was right. I had signed those papers. I thought I was helping my son build his future. I never imagined I was building my own trap. And the best part, Chloe continued, standing up, is that Daniel is so convinced you're losing your memory that when I suggest taking you to a nursing home, he's going to agree. It's for her own good, I'll tell him. And he'll believe me, like always. She left the living room, leaving a trail of expensive perfume. Perfume she probably bought with the money from my jewelry. I stayed there, hands shaking, feeling how everything I had built over 68 years was crumbling like a sandcastle. But in the midst of that collapse, something inside me refused to give up. A voice. Arthur's voice. Eleanor, you are not weak. You never have been. You're just forgetting who you are. And he was right. I had survived my husband's death. I had raised a son practically on my own. I had sold my belongings to give him an education. I was not going to let a 32-year-old manipulator take away the last thing I had left. My dignity. That night, I made a decision. If Daniel couldn't see the truth, then I would have to show it to him. And for that, I needed help. Help that came from where I least expected it. You pay. Because some people betray you, and others show up just when you think there's no one left. That morning I couldn't sleep. I got up before dawn and went down to the basement. I hadn't been down there in months, maybe years. Dust covered the old boxes, the suitcases that held memories no one wanted to see anymore. But I wanted to see them. I needed to remember who I was before I became this scared woman, cornered in her own home. I opened the first box. Inside, photographs. So many photographs. There I was, 25 years old, on my wedding day. The white dress my mother sewed by hand for 3 months. Arthur by my side, so young, so full of dreams. His eyes shone as if he had just discovered a treasure. And, in a way, that's how we felt. Like two treasures that had found each other. I kept looking. Photos of baby Daniel. His first day of school, his graduation. Every image was a pang in my chest. Because that boy with the huge smile and curious eyes didn't exist anymore. Or maybe he did, but he was buried under Chloe's lies. I found a smaller box. I opened it carefully. Inside, letters. Dozens of letters Arthur wrote to me during the years he worked in the United States. 6 years apart, so we could give Daniel a better life. 6 years in which I raised our son alone. I took one of the letters and read it. The ink was faded, but the words were still alive. Eleanor, love of my life. Today Daniel turns 4, and I'm not there. It hurts my soul. But everything I do, every extra hour I work, every sacrifice, is so he can have what we didn't, so he can study, so he never lacks anything. You are the strongest woman I know. I know you're being both mother and father right now, and for that, I love you more every day. Tears fell on the yellowed paper. Where was that boy we sacrificed so much for? Where was the man who was supposed to honor those sacrifices? I stayed there, in that cold basement, until the sun began to peek through the small window. And then I remembered. I remembered the day Daniel was 12 years old and got sick with pneumonia. We didn't have money for the private hospital. Arthur was still in the States. I sold my piano. The piano my father had given me when I turned 15. The only instrument that connected me to him after his death. I sold it for $2,000. And with that money, I paid for the treatment that saved my son. I never told him. I never told him that I sacrificed my music, my only escape, for him. I also remembered when Daniel was 18 and wanted to study engineering at a private university. The tuition was $30,000 a semester. Arthur and I didn't have that kind of money, so I worked double shifts. I taught Spanish in the mornings and cleaned houses in the afternoons. For 4 years, my knees began to ache. My hands filled with calluses. My back became a constant source of pain. But Daniel graduated, with honors. And on his graduation day, when he walked across the stage to receive his diploma, I cried. Not from pain, but from pride. It was all worth it, I thought. How wrong I was. I went up from the basement with shaky legs and a heavy heart. I went into the kitchen and put on coffee. The aroma filled the house. That aroma Arthur loved. The smell of a new day, he always said. I sat by the window and looked at the garden Arthur planted with his own hands, the rose bushes he tended to every Sunday, the lemon tree that still bore fruit every season. Everything here was Arthur. Everything was us. And Chloe wanted to erase it. She had already changed the paintings on the walls, replaced our family photos with giant mirrors and abstract art that meant nothing. She threw out the curtains I had embroidered myself and put up metal blinds. She painted the walls dark gray, when before they were a warm yellow that filled the house with light. She was eliminating every trace of the life we built. And the worst part was, Daniel was letting her. I heard footsteps on the stairs. It was Daniel, getting ready for work. He came into the kitchen, got a mug, poured himself coffee. He didn't even look at me. Daniel, I said softly, do you remember when you were 12 and you got sick? He stopped moving for a second, but didn't turn around. Vaguely, I sold my piano to pay for your treatment. Silence. Do you remember when you wanted to study engineering? I worked cleaning houses to pay for your university. Daniel turned around slowly. His face was a mix of annoyance and discomfort. And why are you telling me this now, Mom? To make me feel guilty? No. So you remember who has always been there for you. You decided to make those sacrifices, he said, with a tone that chilled my blood. Nobody forced you. That's what mothers do. It's their job. His job. As if loving them was an employment. As if every tear, every sleepless night, every aching back was just part of a job description. You're right, I said, feeling something break inside me. Nobody forced me. I did it because I loved you. Because you were my son. Because I would have given my life for you. And I appreciate it, he said, grabbing his briefcase. But that doesn't give you the right to treat my wife badly. I haven't treated her badly. According to you, he replied, walking to the door. But Chloe doesn't lie, Mom. You do. And he left, leaving me alone with my cold coffee and the weight of a terrible truth. I had raised a stranger. That afternoon, while Chloe was at the salon spending who knows how much money, I went to the room she shared with Daniel. Not to spy, to look for answers. I opened the closet carefully. Chloe's clothes took up 90% of the space. Expensive dresses, designer shoes, bags that cost more than Daniel's monthly salary. Where was all this money coming from? I checked the drawers. Makeup, new jewelry, imported perfumes. And then, in the back of the last drawer, hidden under a pile of scarves, I found a folder. I pulled it out with trembling hands. I opened it, and what I saw left me breathless. Deeds to a condo in the Riverbend district. In the name of Chloe Mendez. Value, $400,000. Bank statements, an account I didn't know about. In Daniel's name, but with Chloe as a co-signer. Constant withdrawals, $5,000 here, $7,000 there, $10,000 last week. And the worst part, a bank loan agreement, $40,000, signed by Daniel. The purpose said, home remodeling. But nothing had been remodeled in this house. On the contrary, it was falling apart. Where was that money? I kept reading. There were more documents, credit card applications, in Daniel's name, all with accumulated debt. $35,000 in total. My son was up to his neck in debt. And Chloe? Chloe was the only one getting rich. I took out my phone and photographed every document, every page, every piece of proof. My hands were shaking so much that some photos came out blurry. But it didn't matter. I had enough. I put everything back exactly as it was and left that room. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I was going to have a heart attack. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel fear. I felt fury. A clean, clear, powerful fury. Because now I had proof. Now I could fight. And Chloe had no idea that the war had begun. I needed to talk to someone. Someone who would believe me. Someone who wouldn't see me as a confused old woman making up stories. That person was Carol. My neighbor. My friend of 40 years. The only one who had been with me since Arthur and I bought this house. The one who was with me at the hospital when Daniel was born. The one who held me when Arthur died. If there was anyone in this world I could trust, it was her. That afternoon, I crossed the street and knocked on her door. Carol opened it with her apron on, her hands covered in flour. She was baking bread. She always baked bread when she had visitors. "Eleanor," she said, wiping her hands. Come in, come in. You look terrible. What happened?" I couldn't hold it in anymore. As soon as she closed the door, I broke down. I told her everything. The jewelry, Chloe's lies, Daniel's blindness, the documents I found, the condo, the debts, everything. Carol listened to me in silence, her eyes getting wider and more outraged. When I finished, she got up and poured me a glass of water. "Eleanor," she said, sitting across from me. "There's something I need to tell you." My heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" Carol took a deep breath, as if she were about to confess a sin. 3 weeks ago, I saw Chloe. She was coming out of a pawn shop downtown. City Pawn, I think it's called. I was passing on the bus and recognized her by her blonde hair. She was counting money, a thick wad of cash. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because." Carol looked down. Because I thought maybe you two had pawned something out of necessity. I didn't want to be nosy, but now that you're telling me all this— It was my jewelry, I said, feeling the anger flare up again. She pawned them and never got them back. That's not all, Carol continued. Last week I saw her again. But this time she was at a coffee shop in the Riverbend district with a man. It wasn't Daniel. The world stopped. What? A young, well-dressed guy. He had a briefcase. They looked like they were signing papers. Carol paused. Eleanor, I know this sounds like neighborhood gossip, but I swear it's true, and there's more. That same night, I saw her posting stories on Instagram, photos of a new condo. It said something like, new investment and personal growth. The condo in the Riverbend district, I whispered. Exactly. And if Daniel only makes $5,000 a month, don't tell me they can afford a $400,000 condo. Carol was right. The math didn't add up. Can you do me a favor? I asked her. Anything you need. Come with me to that pawn shop tomorrow. I need to know exactly what happened to my jewelry. Carol nodded without hesitation. I'll pick you up at 10 o'clock in the morning. That night, back in my house, I sat in the living room with my phone. I searched for Chloe's Instagram profile. I hadn't done it before. I was never much for social media, but now I needed to see. Her profile was full of photos. Her in expensive restaurants. Her in beauty salons. Her with bags from brands I couldn't even pronounce. And there it was. The photo of the condo. A modern living room with huge windows. A terrace with a city view. Hardwood floors. Minimalist furniture. The caption read, "Investing in my future. Never too late to build equity. #womanboss. #empowerment. #new goal." The comments were full of congratulations. "You're an inspiration," one said. "So jealous," said another. "That's how you do it, Queen," added a third. No one knew the truth. No one knew that this equity was built on theft, manipulation, and the destruction of a family. I kept scrolling through her profile. More photos, more luxury, more lies. And then I saw something that chilled my blood. A photo from 2 months ago. Chloe, with a man in a suit. The two of them toasting with champagne glasses. The caption read, "Closing deals with the best. Thanks, Mr. Fuentes, for making my dreams come true." Mr. Fuentes. I zoomed in on the photo. The man was about 40. He wore a name badge. It said, real estate agent. So she hadn't just bought the condo. She had done it with professional help. All planned, all calculated. This wasn't an impulse. It was a strategy. And Daniel had no idea. The next morning, Carol picked me up at exactly 10 o'clock. We got in her car and drove downtown. The traffic was heavy, as always. But I barely noticed. My mind was elsewhere. We arrived at City Pawn. It was a small shop, with bars on the windows and a worn-out sign. We went in. The place smelled like dampness and old metal. There were display cases full of jewelry, watches, guitars, tools. A man in his 50s attended to us from behind the counter. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "I'm here to ask about some jewelry that was pawned here," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "About a month ago." The man looked at me suspiciously. "Do you have the pawn ticket?" "No. I wasn't the one who pawned them. It was my daughter-in-law." "Then I can't give you any information. It's confidential." "Please," I insisted. "They were my jewels. My daughter-in-law pawned them without my permission. I need to know what happened to them." The man sighed. "Look, ma'am, even if I wanted to help you, I can't. Without the ticket, there's nothing I can do. Besides, if the jewelry wasn't reclaimed within the 30-day period, it's already been sold." "Sold?" I felt my legs tremble. "That's how it works. You pawn. You have 30 days to reclaim. If not, we sell them to recover the money we loaned. Can you at least tell me how much you gave for them?" The man hesitated. He looked at Carol, then at me. "What was your daughter-in-law's name?" "Chloe Mendez." The man went to his computer. He typed something. He frowned. "Here it is. Chloe Mendez. Pawned a lot of jewelry on September 3rd. Emerald earrings, pearl necklace, gold bracelet, 3 rings. Total loaned. $15,000. $15,000. My jewelry was worth at least $30,000. But pawn shops always give less. And did she reclaim them? I asked, though I already knew the answer. No. The deadline expired on October 3rd. We sold them on the 5th for $22,000. To whom? I can't tell you that. Please, I begged. They were from my mother, from my late husband. They have a sentimental value that is priceless. The man looked at me with something resembling pity. I'm sorry, ma'am. I really am. But they're gone. They're gone. We left that place empty-handed, but not completely empty-handed, because now I had confirmation. Real proof of what Chloe had done. Carol hugged me on the street while people rushed past us without a second glance. Eleanor, you have to do something. You can't let her get away with this. I know, I said, drying my tears. But I need more than this. I need Daniel to see it, to understand it. Because if I confront him now, she'll just invent another lie, and he'll believe her. So, what are you going to do? I looked up at the sky. The clouds were moving fast, as if they were in a hurry to get somewhere. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to gather every piece of proof, every lie, every theft. And when I have it all, I'm going to put it in front of his eyes in a way he can't deny. And if he still doesn't believe you? Then I'll have lost my son, I said, feeling the weight of those words. But at least I won't have lost my dignity. Carol nodded. You can count on me, for whatever you need. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't alone. That even if Daniel had abandoned me, even if Chloe was destroying me, there were still people who loved me, people who believed in me. And that was enough to keep fighting. Because sometimes the biggest battle isn't against the enemy on the outside, but against the pain on the inside. The following days, I acted as if nothing had happened. I got up early, made breakfast, cleaned the house. I smiled when Daniel spoke to me. I nodded when Chloe made her venomous comments. On the outside, I was the same old Eleanor. On the inside, I was a woman on a mission. Because I had learned something important. Silence is a weapon, and I knew how to use it. I began to observe. Chloe had very specific routines. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she went to the gym from 9 to 11 in the morning. On Wednesdays, she had an appointment at the beauty salon at 2 in the afternoon. On Fridays, she went out with her friends and didn't come back until 11 at night. Daniel worked from 8 in the morning until 7 at night, sometimes later. That gave me windows, moments when I could search without being discovered. The first Tuesday after my visit to the pawn shop, I waited for Chloe to leave for the gym. I watched her walk out in her tight-fitting workout clothes, her pink water bottle, and her wireless earbuds. She got into her car, a red Mini Cooper Daniel had given her last year, and left. As soon as the car was out of sight, I went upstairs. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I went into her room. I had 2 hours, maybe 2.5 if she stayed for coffee after the gym, as she often did. I went straight to the closet. This time, I didn't just open the drawers. I emptied them, carefully, photographing the position of everything so I could leave it exactly as it was. I found more documents hidden in shoeboxes, receipts from jewelry stores. Chloe had bought a $7,000 Cartier watch, $5,000 diamond earrings, a $3,000 white gold bracelet, all paid for in cash. Where was she getting so much cash? I kept looking. In the back of the closet, behind some suitcases, I found a small metal box. It was locked with a padlock. I tried to open it. I couldn't. I needed the key. I searched the entire room. In the nightstand drawers, in the bathroom, nothing. And then I remembered. Chloe always carried her purse, a black Prada bag she never left anywhere. The key had to be in there. On Wednesday, while Chloe was at the salon, I went back to her room. This time, I looked in different places. Under the mattress, behind the paintings, inside the decorative books she kept on her desk, the ones I was sure she had never read. And there, inside a book titled The Power of Ambition, I found something, a small manila envelope. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a business card. Mr. Roberto Fuentes, real estate and financial advisor, the same man from the Instagram photo. And behind the card was a handwritten note. Chloe, a pleasure doing business with you. The condo is in your name as we agreed. I hope you'll continue to consider me for future investments. Regards, RF. I photographed everything. I kept looking, and in the same book, I found something else. A folded piece of paper. I unfolded it carefully. It was a plan, written in Chloe's own handwriting. The title said, Project Independence. Below, a list. 1. Pawn Eleanor's jewelry. 2. Convince Daniel to apply for loan. Sen. Buy condo. In my name. 4. Open bank account without Daniel knowing. 5. Make Eleanor seem senile. 6. Convince Daniel to send her to a nursing home. 7. Get the whole house. 8. Divorce him and keep everything. Future. I read that list once, twice, 3 times. I couldn't believe it. It was all there, all planned, step by step. And the worst part was the last item. Divorce him and keep everything. Chloe had never loved Daniel. This was always a plan, an elaborate theft, a long-term scam. And my son was just a tool, a means to an end. I photographed that paper from every possible angle, making sure every word was legible. My phone was shaking in my hands, but not from fear, from rage. On Friday, Chloe went out with her friends. This time, I waited until Daniel had also fallen asleep. It was almost midnight. I went downstairs in complete silence. I had my phone's flashlight on. I went to the living room, to the desk where Chloe usually worked on her laptop. The laptop was closed. I tried to open it. It had a password. I tried dates. Her birthday, Daniel's birthday, our address. Nothing worked. But then I remembered something. I once saw her type her password when she thought I wasn't looking. Queen 2025. I tried it, and the laptop opened. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would wake Daniel. I went into her emails. There were hundreds, from stores, from banks, from her financial advisor. I opened the email from the bank, account statements, and what I saw left me frozen. Chloe had a savings account in her name with $45,000. $45,000. I checked the transactions. Constant deposits. $5,000 here. $8,000 there. $12,000 last week. Where was all this money coming from? I opened another email. This one, from Mr. Fuentes. Chloe, as we discussed, the second condo is almost ready for purchase. I just need you to confirm the down payment amount. With what you already have saved, you should be able to afford it without a problem. Let me know when you have the liquid cash. A second condo. She hadn't just bought one. She was planning to buy another. And Daniel knew nothing. I kept checking. I found an open WhatsApp web chat. It was a group chat with Chloe's friends. I started reading the messages. Girls, I'm almost there. In 2 months, tops, the old woman is out. And Daniel? One friend asked. He's an idiot. He believes everything I tell him. He's convinced his mom is losing her mind. When I suggest the nursing home, he'll agree. And after, the house will be ours. Well, mine. Daniel is just temporary. When I have the deeds in my name, I'll divorce him. I'll keep the house, the condos, everything. And he can go with his mom to the nursing home if he wants. The others laughed with emojis. You're a genius, another wrote. A queen, added a third. I photographed every message, every conversation, every piece of proof of her malice. My hands were shaking, tears were falling, and I couldn't control them. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of pure fury. I packed up and closed the laptop exactly as it was. I went up to my room and locked the door. I reviewed all the photos I had taken. There were more than 100. Concrete, irrefutable proof. Now, I had everything I needed. Chloe's plan in her own handwriting, the bank statements showing her true financial situation, the messages where she admitted her intentions, the documents for the condo, the pawn shop receipts. Everything, but I couldn't act yet. Because if I did now, without preparation, Chloe would find a way to get out of it, to convince Daniel that I had manipulated the evidence, that I was making it all up. I needed professional help. I needed someone who knew the law, who understood fraud, who could present this in a way that Daniel would have no choice but to see the truth. And I knew exactly the right person. The next day, Saturday morning, I told Daniel I was going to church. I wasn't going to church. I was going to the office of Mr. Harrison, Arthur's lawyer, his friend for life, the man who drafted our will years ago. If anyone could help me, it was him. I knocked on his office door. An old but elegant building downtown. His secretary showed me in. Mr. Harrison was 72 years old. White hair, thick glasses. But his eyes were still sharp as an eagle's. "Eleanor," he said, standing up to greet me. "What a surprise! How are you?" "I need your help, Mr. Harrison," I said, getting straight to the point. "Someone is trying to rob me, and that someone is my son's wife." I sat down and told him everything, every detail, every piece of proof. I showed him the photographs on my phone. The lawyer reviewed them in silence. His expression grew more serious with each image. When I finished, he took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "Eleanor, this is serious. Very serious. I know, but I have good news and bad news. Which do you want first? The bad. Legally, it's complicated to recover the money from the loan Daniel applied for. He signed it. Even if he was deceived, in the eyes of the law, he is responsible." My heart sank. "And the good?" The lawyer smiled, a small but fierce smile. "The good news is that you have proof of fraud, financial manipulation, and misappropriation. With this, I can start legal proceedings against Chloe. And there's something more important." "What? Remember you said you signed over half the house to Daniel?" "Yes, I signed some papers 2 years ago." "Before a notary?" "No, I just signed them." Chloe said she would take them to the notary. The lawyer leaned back in his chair with a wider smile. "Then those papers have no legal validity. The house is still 100% yours." The air returned to my lungs. "Are you sure?" "Completely. Without being registered with a notary public, that transfer doesn't legally exist. The house is yours, and Chloe can't take it from you." For the first time in weeks, I felt hope. What should I do? "Leave everything in my hands," the lawyer said. "But I need you to do something. Gather your family. Daniel, Chloe, have a dinner. Invite people you trust. And I will be there. With all the evidence, we are going to put all the cards on the table. Once and for all. And if Daniel doesn't believe me?" The lawyer took my hand. "Eleanor, your son isn't stupid. He's manipulated. But when he sees the evidence, when he hears the facts from a lawyer's mouth, he will understand. And if he doesn't, then at least you will have fought back, with dignity, with truth." I left that office with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Power. Because justice doesn't always arrive on its own. Sometimes you have to go out and get it. 3 days passed since my meeting with Mr. Harrison. 3 days in which I acted normally. I made meals. I cleaned. I smiled. 3 days in which Chloe had no idea that her world was about to collapse. But she was also preparing something I didn't see coming. It was Tuesday afternoon. I was in the garden, watering Arthur's plants. The rose bushes he cared for so much, the jasmine that perfumed the whole house when it bloomed. I heard voices inside the house. Loud voices. Arguing. I dropped the hose and went inside. Daniel and Chloe were in the living room. They had papers spread out on the coffee table. Chloe was speaking in that sweet but firm tone she used when she wanted to manipulate my son. "My love, it's for the best. She can't take care of herself anymore. She's going to get hurt. Or worse, get us into trouble. I don't know, Chloe. It's my mother. I can't just what? Wait for her to fall and break a hip? For her to leave the stove on and burn the house down?" Chloe sighed dramatically. "Daniel, I've been taking care of her. I've been patient. But I can't do it anymore. It stresses me out. It exhausts me." "What are you talking about?" I asked from the doorway. They both turned. Daniel turned pale. Chloe, on the other hand, smiled. "Eleanor, we were just about to talk to you," she said, motioning to the sofa. "Please sit down." "I'd rather stand." Daniel ran a hand through his hair. That nervous gesture he'd had since he was a child, when he had to say something difficult. Mom, Chloe and I have been thinking, and we believe it would be better for you to live somewhere where they can take care of you properly. The world stopped. What? A nursing home, Mom? But not just any home. A nice one. With gardens. With activities. With 24-hour nurses. Are you telling me you want to put me in a nursing home? It's not putting her, Chloe interjected. It's giving her the attention she needs. You're older now, Eleanor. You can't do things on your own anymore. The other day I saw you trying to climb a ladder to change a light bulb, and you almost fell. That's a lie. See? Chloe looked at Daniel with victim's eyes. She doesn't even remember. This is exactly what we're talking about. I'm not going anywhere, I said, feeling the rage rise in my throat. This is my house. It was your house, Mom, Daniel said softly. But now it's ours, and we need the space. Chloe and I, we're expecting a baby. The floor opened up beneath my feet. What? Chloe put her hand on her stomach with a radiant smile. Fake, completely fake. Yes. 3 months. We're going to be parents. And we need to get the house ready for the baby. We need to turn your room into the nursery. It's the biggest one. The brightest. You can't do this, I whispered. It's already decided, Mom, Daniel said, avoiding my gaze. We visited a place last week. It's called Sunset Gardens. It's very nice. It has private rooms. Good food, trained staff. When did you visit? Why didn't you tell me? Because we knew you'd get like this, Chloe answered. That's why we wanted to have everything ready before we talked to you. Look, here are the brochures, the photos. It's really nice. She tossed some glossy papers onto the table with photos of smiling elderly people in gardens. Elderly people abandoned by their families, as if being surrounded by flowers made up for the betrayal. I am not going to a nursing home, I said, my voice trembling. I refuse. Daniel finally looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw something that shattered me. Pity. Mom, it's not negotiable. We already paid the first month, $5,000. You're moving in next week. With what money did you pay for that? With our savings, Chloe lied. Because we care about you. Because we want what's best for you. Liar, I said, looking directly at her. You don't have savings. You have my money. The money from my jewelry. The money from the loan you took out in my son's name. Chloe laughed. A cold, calculating laugh. Here we go again with the baseless accusations. Daniel, do you see what I'm telling you? She's getting worse. Mom, stop, my son said, raising his voice. I'm not going to listen to this anymore. Chloe didn't steal anything from you. You got confused. And now, with this paranoid attitude, you're just confirming that you need professional help. Paranoid? The tears began to fall. Is that what you call me now? Your own mother? I'm calling you what you're proving to be, he said, and every word was a stab. A woman who needs help, and I'm going to give it to you, even if you don't want it. Daniel, please, listen to me. Just once. Let me show you. No, he shouted. Enough, Mom. You've always been controlling. You've always wanted to decide my life. First with my studies, then with my relationships, now with my marriage. But not anymore. I'm an adult, and this is my decision. Chloe moved toward him and hugged him from behind, resting her head on his shoulder. The perfect picture of the worried wife. My love, don't get upset, she said in a soft voice. It's not good for the baby if you're stressed. Daniel took a deep breath and nodded. He turned to me. You have until Sunday to pack your things. The van from the facility is coming to pick you up on Monday. You can take your clothes, some photos, the essentials. This is my house, I repeated, my voice breaking. Not anymore, Mom. Not anymore. And he left the living room. He went upstairs. He left me there, standing, shaking, destroyed. Chloe stayed for a few more seconds. She walked up to me, so close I could smell her expensive perfume. The one she bought with my memories. I told you I was going to win, she whispered, just for me to hear. And I always win. Always. She took the brochures from the table and left. I was left alone in that living room, in the house Arthur and I bought 40 years ago, the house where my son was born, the house where we built our dreams, the house where Arthur died in my arms. And now, they were taking it from me. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed, staring at the walls of my room. The walls Arthur painted light blue because he knew it was my favorite color. The dresser where I kept our photos. The closet where some of his shirts still hung because I couldn't get rid of them. All of that was going to disappear. Turned into a nursery, a baby's room for a liar and a thief. Because now I was sure. There was no baby. It was another lie. Another manipulation. Another way to justify kicking me out of my own home. On Wednesday morning, Carol knocked on my door. I had called her the night before, crying, telling her everything. She came in with a bag of pastries and a coffee pot. "You are not going to any nursing home," she said, without even a hello. "I won't allow it. Daniel already paid the first month. Then he loses his money. You are not leaving. I can't fight my own son, Carol." "Then I'll fight for you," she said, sitting across from me. "When are you meeting with Mr. Harrison?" "On Friday. He's coming here. For the dinner. And Daniel knows? I told him I wanted to have a family dinner, that I was accepting the situation, that I wanted to say goodbye properly." I let out a bitter laugh. Obviously, Chloe was thrilled to accept. She thinks she's already won. "But she hasn't won," Carol said, taking my hand. "Because on Friday, when she sees all the evidence, when she hears the lawyer, when Daniel understands what has really happened, she is going to fall. And she is going to fall hard. And if Daniel still doesn't believe me," Carol squeezed my hand, "then at least you'll know you fought, that you didn't give up, that you didn't let them walk all over you without defending yourself. And that, Eleanor, that is worth more than any house." She was right. I couldn't control Daniel's decision. I couldn't force him to see the truth. But I could put it in front of him. Clear, irrefutable, beyond a shadow of a doubt. And after that, it would be his decision, his responsibility, not mine. The next 2 days were strange. Chloe was euphoric. She sang while she cooked. She smiled all the time. She was even nice to me. "Do you need help packing?" she'd ask, with fake sweetness. "No, thank you. Oh, don't worry. They're going to treat you very well at the facility. You'll have friends your own age. You'll play bingo. You'll be happy." Every word was venom wrapped in honey. Daniel, for his part, avoided me. He left early, came home late. When we passed each other, he barely looked at me, but I knew him. I knew that gesture of clenching his jaw when he was uncomfortable, that rapid blinking when he felt guilty. My son knew that what he was doing was wrong, but he was so entangled in Chloe's lies that he couldn't see the way out. Until Friday, the day everything would change. Because the truth always comes out, sometimes late, sometimes painfully, but it always arrives. Friday morning. I got up earlier than usual. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was still dark outside, but I couldn't sleep. My mind went over every detail of the plan, every word I would say, every piece of proof I would show. Today was the day. The day Chloe would discover she had underestimated the wrong woman. I spent the whole morning preparing dinner. I made Arthur's pot roast, the one that took 3 hours to prepare, the one my husband said was the best in the world. I made mashed potatoes, green beans, homemade biscuits, and for dessert, apple pie, Daniel's favorite when he was a kid. Chloe came into the kitchen mid-morning, yawning. She was wearing an expensive silk robe and slippers with rhinestones. "What's all the fuss about?" she asked, pouring herself coffee. "It's my last dinner in this house," I said, without turning to look at her. "I want it to be special." "How sweet," she said with sarcasm. "Although it's a waste, you should be packing, not cooking." "I've already packed what I need." "Oh, really? And what are you taking?" "Because you can only take 1 suitcase to the facility. Those are the rules." "I know," I lied. "I'm just taking clothes and some photos." Chloe smiled, satisfied. "Very good. That makes it easier for everyone. Oh, and don't worry about the furniture in your room. Daniel already hired people to take it out on Monday. We're going to paint everything white. For the baby." "How many months did you say you were?" 3, she replied, stroking her flat stomach. And do you have symptoms yet? Nausea? Dizziness? A little, but nothing serious. I'm strong. Of course you are. Chloe looked at me suspiciously, as if something in my tone didn't sit right with her. Why are you asking? Just curious, I said, stirring the pot roast. It's exciting. A baby. A new life. She narrowed her eyes. Are you finally accepting the situation? I don't have a choice anymore, do I? I replied with a tired smile. You two decided. And I just want my son to be happy. Chloe relaxed. She smiled again. I'm glad you finally understand, Eleanor. Really. This is for the best. For everyone. She left the kitchen, and I heard her go upstairs, probably to brag on Instagram about her new family chapter. I kept cooking. Calm, serene, because I knew something she didn't. That silence is more powerful than any scream. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. It was Mr. Harrison. He arrived with a leather briefcase and an immaculate suit. Despite his 72 years, he looked imposing, like a general ready for battle. Eleanor. He greeted me with a hug. Are you ready? Ready. Do Daniel and Chloe know I'm coming? I told them I invited a family friend, that I wanted to say goodbye surrounded by people who care about me. Perfect. And Carol? She'll be here at 7, along with Lucy. Lucy? My daughter. Well, the daughter Arthur and I couldn't have, but adopted in our hearts. I smiled. Actually, she's my niece, my sister's daughter, who died 20 years ago. Lucy lives in Chicago. She hasn't been able to visit since Arthur's funeral. But I called her. I told her everything. And she took the first bus. Mr. Harrison nodded approvingly. Good thinking. The more witnesses, the better. Did you bring the proof? He patted his briefcase. It's all here. Documents, photographs, bank statements, the plan in Chloe's handwriting, the messages, all organized and ready to present. And legally, what's going to happen? That depends on what Chloe decides to do after the confrontation, he explained. If she agrees to return the money, sign the divorce, and leave, we can avoid criminal proceedings. If she refuses, well, we have enough to charge her with fraud, misappropriation, and false statements. She could face 3 to 8 years in prison. The air caught in my throat. Prison? It's what she deserves for what she did, Eleanor. This isn't a game. She stole, manipulated, defrauded, and she did it with premeditation. I felt a chill, not of fear, but of justice. And the house? The house is completely yours. The papers you signed have no validity. Daniel has no legal right to it, and Chloe, even less. And the baby? Mr. Harrison looked at me with compassion. Eleanor, I don't think there is a baby. Neither do I. But if there is, that doesn't change anything legally. A pregnancy doesn't justify fraud or theft. I nodded. He was right. And Daniel? Daniel is a victim, too. He was manipulated, deceived. But he will have to take responsibility for the loan he signed. That part is legal, even if it was under duress. He paused. But if Chloe returns the money as part of the agreement, Daniel could pay off the debt without being ruined. I just want him to see the truth, I said, feeling tears threatening to spill. To understand that I'm not crazy, that I'm not making things up, that this whole time she has been the liar. Mr. Harrison put a hand on my shoulder. He will see the truth today. I promise you. At 7 o'clock sharp, the guests began to arrive. First was Carol, with a chocolate cake and a conspiratorial smile. How are you feeling? She whispered. Nervous, but ready. Minutes later, Lucy, my niece, arrived. 43 years old, a nurse, 2 kids, and a heart she inherited from my sister. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Auntie, I can't believe what you told me, she said, her eyes filling with tears. That woman is going to regret messing with our family. Daniel and Chloe came down at 7:30. Chloe was wearing a tight-fitting pink dress, perfect makeup, flawless nails, as if she were on a red carpet and not at a family dinner. Daniel, on the other hand, looked uncomfortable. He wore a wrinkled shirt and had deep dark circles under his eyes. Good evening, Chloe greeted with her fake smile. How nice that you invited so many people. It's my farewell, I said simply. I wanted everyone to be here. Chloe looked at Mr. Harrison with suspicion. And you are? Mr. Edward Harrison, he replied, shaking her hand. Lawyer for the family for 30 years. I was a personal friend of Arthur's. Oh, Chloe said, visibly relieved. A pleasure. She thought he was just an old friend. She had no idea what was coming. We sat at the table. I served the pot roast, the mashed potatoes, the green beans, the biscuits. The conversation was tense, forced. Lucy stared at Chloe with barely concealed contempt. Carol gripped her silverware as if she wanted to use it as weapons. Daniel ate in silence, avoiding everyone's gaze. And Chloe talked nonstop, about her plans for the baby's room, about her decorating ideas, about how happy her new family would be. Every word was a knife, but I let her talk. I let her drive those knives in, because in a few minutes I was going to pull them all out at once. When we finished dinner, I served the apple pie, Daniel's favorite dessert. He tasted it and closed his eyes for a second. I know he remembered his childhood. The afternoons at this very table, his father and I watching him with love. It's delicious, Mom, he said in a low voice. As always, I replied. Chloe didn't even try it. I'm watching my figure, she said, patting her stomach. For the baby. Then, the moment came. I stood up. All eyes turned to me. I want to thank you all for coming tonight, I began, my voice firm. I know it's been a difficult week. A lot of decisions. A lot of changes. Mom, you don't have to. Let me finish, Daniel, I interrupted. I need to say this. He closed his mouth. Over the past few weeks, I've been told many things, that I'm confused, that I forget things, that I make up stories, that I need professional help. I paused, and for a moment, I almost believed it. I almost thought that maybe I was losing my mind. Chloe smiled. She thought I was accepting her version. But then I remembered something, I continued. I remembered who I am. I am the woman who raised a son, practically on her own, who worked double shifts to pay for a university, who sold her most valuable possessions to save her family's life. I am not a confused woman. I am a strong woman, and I am not going to let anyone make me feel otherwise. The silence was absolute. So tonight is not a farewell, I said, looking directly at Chloe. It's a revelation. Chloe turned pale. What are you talking about? Mr. Harrison, I said, without taking my eyes off her. If you please. The lawyer opened his briefcase and began to take out documents. Stacks and stacks of papers. Photographs. Proof. And Chloe, for the first time since I'd met her, was speechless, because the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs light. Mr. Harrison placed the first document on the table. It was the receipt from City Pawn. This, he said in a clear, firm voice, is proof that on September 3rd of this year, Chloe Mendez pawned a lot of jewelry belonging to Mrs. Eleanor. The amount loaned was $15,000. The jewelry was never reclaimed and was sold on October 5th. Daniel picked up the paper with trembling hands. He read it. Read it again. This has to be a mistake. It's not a mistake, the lawyer said. It's a documented fact, and there's more. He placed another document, then another, and another. Bank statements in Chloe's name. The deed to the condo in the Riverbend district. The receipts for the plastic surgery. The invoices from the jewelry stores. For the Cartier watch. For the diamond earrings. Every paper was a bomb, and Chloe was sitting in the middle of the explosion. That doesn't prove anything, she stammered. I worked. I earned that money with my job. Your job? Mr. Harrison asked, raising an eyebrow. According to my research, you present yourself as an influencer. How many followers do you have on Instagram? Almost 8,000. 8,000 followers do not generate the income needed to buy a $400,000 condo, the lawyer said, nor to pay for $13,000 in plastic surgery, nor to buy over $10,000 in jewelry. Unless you have another source of income. Chloe jumped to her feet. This is ridiculous. This is an attack. Daniel, say something. But Daniel said nothing. He was still staring at the papers. His face had gone from white to green. Mr. Harrison placed another document on the table. This time, It was the bank loan agreement. $40,000, he read aloud. Requested in the name of Daniel, on August 15th. Purpose: home remodeling. He paused dramatically. Was any remodeling done in this house, mister? Daniel shook his head, unable to speak. Then where is that money? Silence. The lawyer pulled out another paper. This one was different. Handwritten. In Chloe's script. This, he said, placing it in the center of the table, is what I call a perfect confession. It was the plan. Project Independence. Daniel took it. His eyes scanned every line, every bullet point, every strategy described with chilling clarity. 1. Pawn Eleanor's jewelry. Check. 2. Convince Daniel to apply for loan. Check. 3. Buy condo in my name. Check. 4. Make Eleanor seem senile. In progress. 5. Convince Daniel to send her to nursing home. Pending. 6. Get the whole house. Pending. 7. Divorce him and keep everything. Future. The paper fell from his hands. No, it can't be, he whispered. It's your handwriting, isn't it, Chloe? Mr. Harrison asked with deadly calm. Chloe was shaking. Her perfect makeup was starting to run with sweat. That's. Someone forged it. Eleanor wrote it to make me look bad. My aunt forged your handwriting? Lucy interjected, her voice icy. The same aunt who, according to you, is senile and confuses things? Chloe turned to Daniel with desperate tears. My love, don't believe them. They're making it all up. They hate me. They've always hated me. They want to separate us. They want to destroy our family. Family? Carol stood up. You call this a family? You robbed a 68-year-old woman. You manipulated her son. You planned to put her in a nursing home to take her house. And you still have the nerve to call it a family? Shut up. You don't know anything. I know more than you think, Carol retorted. I saw you leave the pawn shop with the money. I saw you with your real estate agent. I saw you buying new jewelry with the stolen money. And I was there when Eleanor cried in my kitchen because her own son wouldn't believe her. Chloe looked for another way out, another lie. Daniel, please, think about our baby, our child. Are you going to let them destroy his mother? Mr. Harrison pulled out one last document. Speaking of the baby, he said, Miss Chloe, could you show us the results of your pregnancy test or the 3-month ultrasound? Chloe froze. I have them in Chicago, at my mom's house. Your mother lives here in the city, the lawyer said, over in Westlake. I spoke with her yesterday. Chloe's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. You spoke to my mom? Yes. A very nice woman, by the way. She told me she didn't know anything about any pregnancy. In fact, she told me you two haven't spoken much since you asked to borrow $5,000 6 months ago and never paid her back. Daniel stood up slowly. His face was a mask of disbelief. There's no baby? Chloe started to cry. But these tears weren't acted. They were pure panic. Daniel, there's no baby? He shouted. The shout echoed through the house. I had never heard my son shout like that. Chloe backed away. Not yet, but there was going to be. I was planning to get pregnant soon. I just needed a little more time to. To what? Daniel was trembling. To finish robbing me? To kick my mother out of her house? To take everything and then leave, like your plan says? I wasn't going to leave. I love you, liar, mister. Harrison intervened with a calm voice. Miss Chloe, I also have copies of your WhatsApp conversations here. He pulled out several printed sheets, conversations where you tell your friends, and I quote, Daniel is an idiot. He believes everything I tell him. When I have the deeds in my name, I'll divorce him and keep everything. He placed the sheets in front of Daniel. My son read them, and with every word his face transformed, from pain to fury, from fury to disgust. There are also these messages, the lawyer continued, where you call Mrs. Eleanor the stupid old woman and say that in 6 months you'll have her out of the house. Daniel threw the papers on the floor and looked at Chloe as if she were a stranger. Who are you? Daniel, please. Who are you? Chloe was sobbing uncontrollably. I just wanted to have something of my own. I just wanted to steal, to lie, to destroy my family. Daniel ran his hands over his face. Did you ever love me? Even a little? Chloe didn't answer, and that silence was the clearest answer. Daniel turned to me. His eyes were red, full of tears. Mom, No, I interrupted, raising a hand. Not yet. I turned to Chloe. You have two options, I said, with a calm I didn't know I possessed. You can return every dollar you stole, sign the divorce, give up any right to this house or to my son, and leave quietly. Or you can refuse and face criminal charges for fraud, misappropriation, and false statements, which, as the lawyer explained, means 3 to 8 years in prison. Chloe looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over. I believe it is, I replied, because I don't just have the proof. I have witnesses, I have legal documents, and I have something you will never have. The truth. Mr. Harrison pulled out 2 more documents. Here is the divorce agreement, he said, placing it in front of Chloe. And here is the repayment agreement. You have 48 hours to sign both. If you don't, we file the criminal complaint on Monday morning. Chloe took the papers with trembling hands, read them, and knew she was cornered. And if I don't have all the money? Then you sell the condo in the Riverbend district, I answered. You sell the jewelry you bought, you sell everything you bought with my money, and you pay back every last dollar. This is abuse. This is justice, Carol said. Chloe looked at Daniel one last time, looking for support, for salvation, but my son turned his back on her. Get out of my sight, he said in a broken voice. Now. Chloe stood up, grabbed her purse, and with what little dignity she had left, walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned to me. This doesn't end here, Eleanor. Yes, I replied. Yes, it does, right now. And she closed the door behind her. The silence that followed was overwhelming. Daniel slumped into a chair. He covered his face with his hands. And he cried. He cried in a way he hadn't since his father's death. I wanted to hug him, to comfort him, but I knew he needed to process everything first. Lucy, Carol, and Mr. Harrison stood up discreetly. We'll call you tomorrow, Carol said, kissing my cheek. When they were gone, I walked over to my son. I knelt in front of him. I took his hands. Daniel. He looked up. His eyes were shattered. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't see it. I was so stupid. You weren't stupid, I said softly. You were manipulated. There's a difference. I said horrible things to you. I accused you. I didn't believe you. I was going to put you in a nursing home. He broke down again. How can you even look at me? Because you are my son, I replied, and you always will be. Even when you make mistakes, even when you fall, you will always be my son. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't something you deserve, Daniel. It's something that's given, and I give it to you, but on one condition. What? That you learn from this. That you never again let someone manipulate you like that. That you open your eyes. That you trust your family, because we will never betray you. Daniel hugged me. Hard. Like when he was a little boy and had nightmares. And I hugged him back. Because despite all the pain, despite all the tears, despite everything we had lost, I had gotten back something more valuable than any jewel. I had gotten my son back. Because true love isn't destroyed by lies. It just hides, waiting for the right moment to return. The next 2 days were a whirlwind. Chloe didn't show up on Saturday or Sunday, but on Monday morning, at 9 o'clock sharp, she knocked on the door. Lucy and Carol were with me. I wasn't going to face her alone. I opened the door. Chloe looked different. No makeup. Hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Casual clothes. Deep dark circles. She was no longer the perfect woman from Instagram. She was just a defeated person. I came to sign, she said, without looking me in the eye. We went into the living room. Mr. Harrison was already there, waiting with the documents. Chloe sat down. She picked up the pen. And she signed. The divorce agreement. The repayment agreement. The waiver of any rights to the house. Every signature was a nail in the coffin of her lies. The condo is already for sale, she said in a hollow voice. My agent says he can get a buyer in 2 weeks. The money will be transferred directly to Daniel's account to pay off the loan. And the rest? Mr. Harrison asked. I sold the jewelry, the watch, everything. She pulled an envelope from her purse. Here is $14,000 in cash. It's all I could get for now. Mr. Harrison counted the money meticulously. By my calculations, you're still short about $8,000. I'll pay it, Chloe said, in installments. $1,000 a month for a year. I've already signed a promissory note with my mother as a co-signer. I accept, I said. Chloe finally looked at me. Why didn't you send me to prison? You had all the proof. You could have destroyed me. I took a moment before answering. Because revenge wouldn't give me my son back. It wouldn't give me my peace back. And because, whether you believe it or not, I'm not like you. I don't seek to destroy people. I just wanted justice. And I have it. Chloe looked down. I never imagined you were so strong. Well, you should have, Carol interjected. Women who have lived through what Eleanor has don't break easily. They bend, they suffer, but they don't break. Chloe stood up. She grabbed her purse. Daniel already signed the divorce papers, right? Yes, the lawyer replied. Everything is in order. Can I talk to him? One last time? No, I said firmly. You've done enough damage. Chloe nodded. She didn't argue. She walked to the door. But before leaving, she stopped. Eleanor, I'm sorry. Not for getting caught, but for not seeing that you two really loved each other. That you were a real family. She paused. I never had that. And I think that's why I didn't know how to value it when I saw it. You can still build it, I said. A family. A true love. But not with lies. Not by stealing. Not by destroying others. Chloe smiled sadly. It's too late for me. It's never too late, I replied. But you have to start by being honest. With yourself. With others. She nodded, and this time, when she walked out that door, I knew she wouldn't be back. Daniel had spent the weekend at a hotel. He needed space, time to process everything. On Monday afternoon, he came home. He walked in with a small suitcase. He looked tired, worn out, as if he had aged 10 years in a week. Mom, he said, can we talk? Of course. We sat in the living room, the same room where everything had exploded. I don't know where to start, he said, wringing his hands. I've been thinking all weekend about how we got to this, about how I didn't see the signs, about how I failed you. Daniel, no, let me finish. He took a deep breath. I was a bad son. I accused you of horrible things. I defended someone who was robbing you. I was going to send you to a nursing home. You, the woman who gave me everything. Tears began to roll down his cheeks. And the worst part is, I have no excuse. Because you raised me better. Dad raised me better. But I chose to ignore my instincts. I chose to believe her instead of believing you. And that's unforgivable. I've already forgiven you, Daniel. How can you? How can you forgive me after everything I did to you? I moved closer to him. I took his face in my hands, like I used to when he was a little boy and was scared. Because you are my son, and a mother's love has no conditions. It has no limits. Yes, it hurt me. It shattered me. But I never stopped loving you. Not for a single second. Daniel broke down. He hugged me and cried on my shoulder like a small child, and I held him. I rocked him. I stroked his hair. Because that's what mothers do. They forgive, they heal, they love unconditionally. The following weeks were about rebuilding. Daniel moved back into his old room, the one that was his before he married Chloe. He started therapy to process the trauma of the manipulation, to understand how he had fallen into that trap. And little by little, he started to be himself again. The Daniel I knew. The one who made jokes. The one who helped in the kitchen. The one who sat with me to watch my soap operas even though he didn't like them. The condo in the Riverbend district sold in 3 weeks. The money was used to pay off the bank loan. Daniel was free of debt. Chloe kept up with the monthly payments. $1,000 every month, like clockwork. She never tried to contact Daniel again. She never came back to this house. And we moved on. And 6 months later, on a Sunday afternoon, Daniel and I were in the garden. He was pruning the rose bushes. I was watering the jasmine. "Mom," he said suddenly, "thank you." "For what?" "For not giving up. For fighting. For showing me I was wrong without destroying me in the process." I smiled. "I would never destroy you, Daniel. You are the most important thing in my life." "I know. And I value that now. I really do." He put down the pruning shears. "Dad would be proud of you, of how you handled everything. Your father always said that true strength isn't in shouting. It's in staying standing when everything is trying to knock you down." He was right. We continued working in silence. A comfortable, healing silence. And then Daniel said something I'll never forget. "Someday when I have children, I'm going to tell them your story. I'm going to tell them their grandmother was the strongest woman I ever knew. That she was robbed, betrayed, almost had her home taken, but they never took her dignity." Tears started to roll down my cheeks. "And I'm going to teach them what you taught me," he continued. "That true love isn't bought with jewelry. It isn't built with lies. It's built with truth, with sacrifice, with forgiveness." I went to him and hugged him. "Your father would be so proud of you," I whispered. "I hope someday I can be half the man he was. And half the person you are." That night I went up to the attic. I opened the box where I kept Arthur's letters. I took one I had never read. It was sealed with wax. It said on the envelope, "For Eleanor, to be opened only when you need it most." I opened it carefully. Arthur's handwriting filled the 2 pages. "My love, if you are reading this, it means you're in a difficult moment. It means life has given you a hard test. And I know you're doubting, wondering if you have the strength to go on. Well, let me tell you something. You do. You always have. You are the woman who put her career on hold to raise our son, who worked to exhaustion to give him a future, who sold her piano, her music, her soul, to save him. You are the woman who waited for me for 6 years while I was away, who never complained, who never gave up. And if anyone tries to make you believe you are weak, that you are wrong, that you aren't worthy, remember this: you are Eleanor, and in your name is your power. You are the remedy for any wound, the solution to any problem, the light in any darkness. You don't need jewelry to shine. You just need to be you. I love you. I have always loved you. And from wherever I am, I will keep watching over you. Yours forever, Arthur." I folded the letter carefully and kept it in my heart. A year after all that, life had found its balance. Daniel met someone new, a woman named Patricia, an elementary school teacher. Humble, simple, with a huge heart. The first time he brought her home, I prepared for the worst. For the warning signs, for the red flags. But Patricia was none of that. She helped me wash the dishes without being asked. She sat with me to look at photo albums. She asked about Arthur. She listened to my stories with genuine interest. And when she left, she told Daniel, "Your mom is amazing. She has a special light." That night, Daniel came to my room. "What do you think of her?" "I think she's a good woman," I answered honestly. "But it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you feel." "I love her, Mom. But this time is different. This time I see things clearly. And I want you to be part of our relationship. To tell me if you see anything wrong. Because I trust your judgment. Because you have always known what's best for me." And in that moment, I knew my son had learned his lesson. One afternoon, while cleaning the attic, I found another forgotten box. I opened it curiously. Inside was a simple silver bracelet. No frills. It was the first piece of jewelry Arthur ever gave me. When we were dating, when we had no money, but all the love in the world, I put it on my wrist. And I realized something. I never needed the expensive jewelry. I never needed gold or diamonds or emeralds. I always had something more valuable. He had love. He had family. He had dignity. And that, no one could take from me. Today, when I look back, I don't see a story of pain. I see a story of survival, of strength, of justice. Because there are people who will try to rob you, manipulate you, destroy you. But if you stand firm in your truth, if you don't let them take your essence, if you fight with dignity and not with vengeance, then, in the end, you will always win. Not because you have more money, not because you have more power, but because you will have something they will never have: peace. And so my story ends. Not with a fairy tale happy ending, but with a real ending, with scars that became lessons, with pain that transformed into wisdom, with tears that watered a new garden, because life isn't always fair, but it always gives you the chance to choose who you want to be in the midst of injustice. And I chose to be strong. I chose to be dignified. I chose to be me, Eleanor, the woman who didn't need jewelry to shine. She just needed to remember who she was. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something, leave me a comment telling me where you're watching from. Tell me if you've ever had to fight for your dignity, if you've ever been underestimated and had to show your strength. Give it a like if you believe the truth always finds a way to come to light, and subscribe to the channel to keep hearing real-life stories. Stories of women who refuse to be defeated. Stories that remind us that it's never too late to take back what is ours. Because true wealth isn't in what you own, but in what you don't allow to be taken from you. Thank you for staying with me until the end. See you in the next story.